Welcome back to my channel, guys. My name is Raggy Rog, and today we are going to be rating my favorite Pokemon starters in their second stage form, based entirely on their shiny stage. So, I've done this before with their first forms, in which I rated them exclusively on how they look as a shiny. So regardless of whether or not I like them as a Pokemon for any other reason, I am doing these ratings based on just how good of a shiny form I think they actually are. So it could be quite drastically different from how I actually feel about them as a Pokemon in general. This particular list, you're probably going to see at the bottom of the screen here, a lot of Pokemon that are not actually the second stage evolution are going to appear, and that's simply because on tiermaker.com I could not find a single tier list dedicated to just the shiny forms of the second stage Pokemon starters, which is quite a niche to fill, so I'm not terribly surprised. But there it is in order of S rank through to D. Which Pokemon do I think have the best shiny forms from all of our starter options? So, just getting into it in order of how I see them, we're going to start with Ivysaur. Now, Ivysaur is probably going to go up into A, which as I recall, is actually higher than Bulbasaur in his shiny form, if only because we get to see the color of that flower, and it is noticeably different, where Bulbasaur changes from green to a different shade of green. Ivysaur does the same thing, but he's got that added flair of having the yellow flower, which is a very noticeable difference. At a glance, you can tell right away that he is a shiny Pokemon, and that's what we like. Then we have Charmeleon, and I am going to put him down in C rank. If you squint, if you think about it, this is obviously a shiny, but it's not very interesting. It's just a much lighter shade than what he usually is, and I much prefer his dark red coloring in his normal form anyway. So unfortunately, even though I love Charmeleon, I have to rate him quite poorly. Wartortle, I actually have to rate even lower because this is going to be a common thing, I think, but a lot of Pokemon's shiny forms are like half a shade different from their just normal appearance, and Wartortle is one such Pokemon, unfortunately. Bayleaf is going to go into C because he's similar to Chikorita. He just looks like he looks like he's been oranged over the autumn or something like that, which is kind of works, but it would have worked better if they had leaned into it instead of still keeping him generally just green. Quilladin, similar story, it just looks like he's under a sepia tone. It's the exact same story for Cyndaquil, as I recall from my last video in this little series. So there you go. Croconaw. I'm actually going to put Croconaw in B. Now, I remember I rated Totodile quite high. I think I put Totodile in A, for the reason that even though he doesn't change much, if you have to change just one little thing about a Pokemon, appearance-wise, to make them a shiny, that is an example of how to do it, because the spikes on his back are the only thing that change color. They change from pink to blue. And they do the same thing with Croconaw, but for some reason it just doesn't look as good to me on this Pokemon. I feel like we should have seen a little more change, even if it was just a more drastic shift in the blue color on the rest of his body. But something about Croconaw just leaves me feeling underwhelmed. Grovyle, I'm going to put in B as well, and this is a much better color change than what we see Croconaw get, but while it looked a lot more vibrant on Trico, I feel like there should have been a more drastic change for Grovyle, and Grovyle is rated as poorly as he is here, if only because my standards for him are so much higher. Grovyle is probably my favorite midway starter of the three from Gen 3. So I'll say that Grovyle is a little disappointing. It's not a bad shiny form, it's just a little disappointing at this point. Combusken, for a different reason, is kind of underwhelming. It's clearly a shiny, but the darker coloring and everything, it's vibrant, but I would have just liked to have seen him go like a completely different shade. Speaking of completely different shades, I have to put Marshtomp up into A rank. Just because, and it's the same story for Mudkip. This is going to be a recurring theme in this video, I'm sorry to say, but for the same reason as Mudkip, because his color is a total departure from what we know him as, and it suits him, that's why he gets rated as highly as he does. For Grotto, I'm going to put Grotto up into A section. Now, where a lot of green Pokemon who change to a green color it's very unattractive to me. It's kind of like going in reverse. In the case of Grotto, he gets enough yellow into his coloring that it looks right to me. It's very eye-catching. It's clearly a shiny, and it works. That's all I can say on that. Monferno, same story as these other guys. It's clearly a shiny. It works. Underwhelming. Prinplup all the way at the bottom. If you didn't know any better, this guy is not even a shiny. Servine. Now, Servine I'm going to put in A. He's not quite an S, but he's an A because while Snivy, similar to Grotto, Turtwig and Snivy are a departure from Pokemon that barely look different after they get a shiny form. But in the case of Servine, he gets that added color in his little like neck piece, the scarf, with like that bright orange color, and I like that a lot. And this is the kind of thing I want to see more of in shiny Pokemon. Pignite I'm going to put in B because while the purple on the orange is not necessarily a good combination of colors, it's different enough from what he regularly looks like, so we can appreciate that a lot. Duot is going to go down in C. Not very interesting, not much to say. Quilladin, I have to begrudgingly put Quilladin into the A section, and this is because I really hate what Quilladin looks like, just overall. But compared to most of the other shinies in this tier list today, his brown coloring is a massive departure that works because it's a grass type and we still have a woody-like texture. I'm not crazy about like the yellow tips, but it still works. Overall, this is a great shiny, and this is a perfect example of how to use brown in a shiny Pokemon. Similar to Fennekin in the first starter shiny video I did, Brazen is going to go all the way to S-Reg. This cohesion of purple and orange and white and black works so perfectly, and same story, it matches the theme, like the aesthetic that this line is going for with like the witchy feel. If this had been the default appearance for Fennekin and Brazen and that, I don't think anyone would have questioned it at all. Then we have Frogadier, and Frogadier goes down in C for the same reason as the rest of them. Clearly a shiny, not very different. Dartrix, same story. Torracat, I am going to put up in B. Torracat is almost the exact same problem as Litten, in that the white is too much of a contrast from the rest of its coloring, except in the case of Litten, we had white on bright red, and in this case it is white on a more of an orange color, so it's a little softer, so it looks better. I'm still going to say that I think the orange color probably should have just changed completely to what, I don't know, but I feel like this is a lot easier on the eyes than Litten is for sure. Then we have Brionne, and Brionne, sorry water starters, it's not looking good for you guys. Thwackey, same story. This one, you would not be able to convince me is a shiny Pokemon if it wasn't on this list. Then we go on to Raboot, and I'm going to put Raboot in C because I actually really like the gray coloring. It works really well because rabbits can be gray, and it's still not different enough, and I feel like if you didn't know any better, you could actually still construe this as not the shiny form, especially if you're very new to Gen 8. So there you go. Okay, and now lastly on this list, I believe his name is Drizzile, and kind of anticlimactically, I'm gonna put him in B, and he's going into B section just because while he is still pretty much the same colors that he was before, it's a good example of how to reuse the same colors. I like the darker blue, I like the pink hands, and I like that the general texture goes from overall like a weird pastel to something a little more dense, I guess you could say. But, with that said, these have been my ratings for the shiny forms for all of the Pokemon starters from Gens 1 through to 8, based exclusively on just how I feel about their shiny form. And as you can see, if you've watched my other starter rating videos where I just rate them based on my favorites, appearance-wise, based on how they look as shinies, it's a real departure from how I feel about them otherwise. Typically, Brazen is definitely not in my S rank, generally speaking. So there you go. In any case, please comment down below which ones are your favorites and why. And stay tuned because it won't be long and I will be getting to the next video in this series in which I rate them in their final form. So there you go. In any case, if you enjoyed this content today, then please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure to hit the bell icon as well so you can get instant updates anytime there's a new upload. My name is Raggy Rog. Thank you very much for watching today. I will see you in the next video. Have a good one!